All right, welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast on a Friday. Man, it's been a busy week here for us as the 76ers buzz has just been all over the place. As we have been saying, the draft starts at number 3, and they hold the 3rd overall pick, but there's been a lot of things going on, and we're just going to get right into it because we have a big guest coming up here shortly. So as we always do, introduce you, Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, I'm Devon Givens. Bree is here, our president of basketball operations, and all of you in the chat, we really appreciate it. But without further ado, because this is going to be a heavy show, it's going to be a fun show to get a lot of information on some of these prospects. We're going to go right to our guest line here and bring in our featured guest for the day, and that is the senior writer at The Athletic for the NBA and the NBA draft. Of course, you can also check out his Game Theory podcast, which is a very informative podcast as well. Sam Vecenie joining us here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. Sam, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Devon, what's going on, man? Derek and Kyle, like I've known Derek for like a decade. Kyle, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. I feel like we've seen each other a few times here and there. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to finally get a chance to come on the PHLY. I think I might be the first Pittsburgher you've ever had on the PHLY. I'm sorry about that, but we'll get through it in the end.
No, that's a good start for the Pittsburghers to
Well, and I
join
feel
us,
like Pittsburgh, there's not a lot of overlap in really it's Flyers Penguins is the big one. And other than that, they don't play each other enough, the other teams, to have any.
There is always that beef of Wawa versus Sheets though. So, You know what I mean, Sam?
I've never eaten Wawa. That's the thing.
Wow.
I can't genuinely give you a take. I've never had Wawa. I've only had Sheets.
All right. Well, one thing we do have in common is the basketball, and that's where we're going to start. So I did want to start off, though, because you did drop your highly anticipated 2025 NBA draft guide. This is the 6th edition of your draft guide. It's very big. You have your tiers, all that stuff. We'll get into that. But the first thing I wanted to ask you for the people who are watching and listening is, how do you get to the process of doing all of this, putting this together? Because it is very informative. It is deep dive.
100+ pages. Yeah, it's a lot.
There's a lot. So the process, Sam, for how you get to this point, and as you even said it in your introduction, is one of your favorite parts of the year where you are able to drop this and release this to all the basketball fans out there, whether it's the normal, just general basketball fan, or maybe even an executive that is peeking at it and seeing what information you do have in there. So just a general overview of how you get to this process and what it is you what you look to do when you put this together.
Yeah, like when I started doing this thing like 6 years ago, it felt like fairly overwhelming and like all encompassing in a weird way. I called, one of the first people I called was Dane Brugler, who does the NFL version over at our website. And we kind of figured out what the structure would kind of be for like what an NBA one would look like. And then I talked through it with editors and everything. But now I'm going to be honest with you, Devon, like it doesn't write itself. Like it's a lot of time. Don't get me wrong, but the processes are like pretty set in stone now to where it's not as like difficult in terms, like the structure is what it is at this point. You know what I mean? Like I have to write about prospects and write about things, and we changed to like bullet points and things like that this year. But the process in terms of each player is, as I'm watching games throughout the season, I take crazy notes on all of the games that I'm watching, be it NBA, be it college. For the college guys particularly, I'm really focusing on, all right, what are tendencies here? Like, Kon Knueppel, like his, most common screen partner this year was certainly Common Maluach. He had better chemistry with Common Maluach than any of Duke's guards did this year. So like, what are we looking at here? Trying to figure out, little tendencies defensively in terms of closeout tech. Like I'm really trying to dig into the weeds and figure it all out so that when I go to sit down and like really write these profiles at the end of the day here, And I start that process really in like February, even like January at some point.
That's a lot of time to put together write-ups. And when people actually read these write-ups and see how much is said and the background and intel and whatnot on all these guys, you can tell that it has taken, 3 months, 4 months to just write this all out and take, I don't know if your notebooks or your notes look like Zodiac Killer styled scrawlings, but I'm sure it's a lot to sort through at the end of the day.
Just off the top of your head, what was the final word count of the guide?
I was in the 160 range, 160,000.
That's like legitimately a full book. Like that's like a 250-page book, give or take.
Yeah, it was funny when I would go on Mark Titus's show at the Ringer back when he was there. His old producer Jim Cunningham would literally list off a number of books that the draft guide was longer than, and it was just genuinely like really funny. Like I can't remember what the funniest one was, but it was like there are like classics that are shorter than this. It's a completely absurd project.
All right, well, all right, let's. That's funny, man. That's a pretty good book and a very popular book over the last 6 years. And I want to let everybody know, of course, our show is brought to you by for the summer, for the Sixers content that we'll bring you throughout the entire summer, Rothman Orthopedics.
All right. So, Sam, with that preamble, I'm curious how in the last 6 years, maybe your view on prospects has changed and maybe affected how you rank players, right? Because the league evolves very quickly, frankly, right? 2 years is the end of an era in some cases now, right? For styles and teams and whatnot. So, as you watch the different trends come in and out and watch how defenses change and offenses evolve, like in that period of time, what is much different for you or most different for you right now compared to when you started doing these draft guides?
Yeah, I think that the big thing that I would point to there is that I've just gotten smarter at this. Like I've gotten better at it as I've gotten older. Like I was doing I did the first one at like 28 years old or whatever. And if you think about how smart you were at 28 versus what you know now, it's, I'm sure, drastic in terms of the tonnage, right? Of what you can, actually think about in the way that your complex thought processes work about basketball and the way that you see it spatially and things like that. So like, I've just gotten better at this. I always make the joke, like I started doing this when I was 24. Like I was really stupid when I was 24. Like,
as are most people,
like,
frankly.
Yeah. Like I was genuinely not good at this at 24. And I was like incredibly lucky to have this job at CBS and like was, I got some hits. I'm sure I have some misses if you go back. Like I was really high on Fred VanVleet. Also like did not like Rudy Gobert at all. You know what I mean? Like there are so many different things that go into it. I've gotten better at it. The thing that, to answer your question about what I look for now in prospects, I think that you're right. My evaluation process has changed. It's really funny that you asked that question because one of the projects I'm working on right now is ranking the top 20 prospects that have come through like in the last decade that I've been doing this, right? And looking back through, who I had the highest grades on. I'm just like, yeah, like this was stupid. Like, what were you looking at? Like, why did you have such a high grade on this guy, right? And like even like 3 or 4 years ago, like Jabari Smith Jr. Like, looking back through it, I think I just didn't have quite the same understanding of like body dynamics and like dynamic movement that I do now. The other thing that I look for generally is just like my thought process on the NBA has changed in a real way, right? Like I basically want guys who have real positional size or length or strength, point blank, and then have like dribble, pass, shoot, defend capabilities. Like those are the things that I look for most right now. I want as many of those boxes ticked as possible. And look, like there are precious few players in every draft that tick all of those boxes is the reality. But figuring out what the most important ones of those are for the role, right? Like if you're going to be a lead guard, you probably have to be able to dribble and shoot and defend. If you're going to be a wing, you really have to be able to shoot and defend. If you're going to be a big, you have to have like genuine positional size, and you have to be able to defend at a super high level, and your hands have to be great. The other thing that I really look for a lot now, and where I think I went wrong a little bit early on, was looking at like a player's center of gravity, because there are a lot of things that you can change. Like, there are ways you can get stronger. You can add strength to your lower half. You can add strength to your upper body if you need to, right? You can't really change how high your hips are. You know what I mean? Like, you can't change where your center of gravity is. And like, that's, I'm a little bit lower on common Maluwatch than some people are, right? Like, I have them in like, 11 or 12, something like that. And I worry that, that game against Houston that we saw in the Final Four, I don't want to over-index on it, but like, he struggled to defensive rebound throughout the entire course of the year. And being a great defensive rebounder for a, relatively limited center in terms of passing ability, in terms of handle, anything like that, like, he's never going to be a shot creator.
Yeah.
Being able to control the defensive glass is critical. And I worry that because his hips are as high as they are, he's going to kind of just get wedged out and anchored out of his position a little bit more often than what we all want him to. So, that's like just even like a very specific thing that, I think that there are so many ways that these kids can improve, and they're going to be different human beings by the time that they're 25 as they are at 19 and 20. But the one thing that you kind of can't change is like, there are just certain physical things that you can't change. And like, high hips is one of them that always really worries me a little bit.
So in that same vein, to get more into some specific prospects, but definitely guys that we're talking about at number 3, the Sixers are talking about at number 3. Your third tier of guys in this class: Kon Knueppel, VJ Edgecombe, Trey Johnson, Ace Bailey, in that order. I know you've said that's the order in a vacuum, right? And that's not the order team to team, that if you were, whether it's the Sixers, whether it's whoever else, that you would reorder these guys. So what's the order for the Sixers that you would put those guys in? And, related to the physical stuff, you do have Kon third, and there are a lot of people with athleticism and, agility concerns with Kon defensively. Why are you maybe less concerned about those than, I guess, probably the general draft community seems to be?
Well, like, here's a project. Like, as we're going through this, like, let's talk through what a Sixers draft board should look like for all of us, right? Like, so with Kon, the reason that I think I'm a little bit higher on Kon is because there are just fewer holes right now in his game than there are for the others, in my opinion. Kon is certainly a deficient athlete. Like, I'm not going to make a case otherwise.
Yeah.
He will be, I don't know, in the bottom 6% of athletes in the NBA, probably, in terms of pure explosiveness, speed, twitchy movements, leaping ability, etc. Right? Didn't really hinder him this year. Hasn't really hindered him in high school. Could hinder him in the NBA defensively, I think, particularly, would be the question. But in terms of what his skill set is, he is a 6'5", guy with like an 8'6" standing reach, 220 pounds, has that really low center of gravity, real dribble pass shoot skills, like genuine, really high level dribble pass shoot skills. Was a 48, 41, 91 guy this year as a freshman. It is exceptionally rare to find guys that are able to be that efficient as freshmen in college basketball, especially playing at the high major level. 14.4 points, 2.7 assists versus 1.4 turnovers. Another skill that like I always just look for in terms of guys that I really like: processing ability. How quickly do you read things that are happening on the court? It kind of goes into the passing ability, but it's more than that. It's how quickly do you relocate? How quickly do you kind of find the open areas of the defense when you're off the ball? How quickly do you move the ball when you catch it? Like, are you somebody who's holding the ball in order to try and make plays? He makes really quick, rapid decisions, and he's very comfortable playing as a part of a team, or he's comfortable, as he showed in the ACC tournament, leading a team when he was the ACC tournament MVP after Cooper Flagg went out with his ankle injury and led them to the ACC tournament title at Duke. So I look at the completeness of his game. He is genuinely somebody who can dribble, pass, shoot, and make decisions. Then on top of it, I think he's like a way underrated defender.
Yeah.
That dude is competitive as hell. Like he is a battler. He scraps, he claws. If he gets his chest in front of you, you aren't going through him. That's the reality. Like it is such a low center of gravity and he's so physical and strong. The other thing that I think he does really well, yes, he's not all that quick. He does a really, really good job of leading his man into where he knows the help is. And that's a really critical skill as you kind of move toward the NBA. Yes, the wider driving lanes that you will see in the NBA because the geometry of the court is just wider because of the 3-point line, because of the shooting ability that every NBA player has. But he's good enough to where I think he's going to be able to lead those guys into help and not be like a disaster on defense. I'm not sitting here telling you he's going to be, a stopper. I'm not sitting here telling you he's going to be even like what Max Strus has turned into for the Cavs. And I think like Max is like a pretty good defender. I think he's a solid defender though. And he's not going to be like a guy that you can't play in the playoffs. Like I think you're going to be fine playing him in the playoffs.
So to that point, you released a mock draft today where the Sixers essentially gave up 3 Drummond and Gordon and got back 6, 18, and 32. Yep. Did I get that right?
Got it right.
And then you had them selecting
yeah.
You had them selecting Kon with that pick. When you rank sort of like your goals with that overall series of moves, it seems like, part of it is, sort of like decreasing cap hits because the Sixers do have those apron concerns. Part of it is getting Kon, and I guess part of it's just getting more draft capital. What do you think weighed most heavily in that, fake trade that you brought up?
It's kind of all of it to me. Like it's the totality of being able to accomplish, killing 3 birds with 1 stone, so to speak, right? I don't have a massive difference between number 3 and number 6 in this class. I just don't. I can totally see people that think Ace Bailey has this massive upside and they want to take a bet on that. I'm like, honestly, like with where I am with Ace, like I almost think of him almost as like he has like a safer floor than what people think, but I'm not as convinced on the upside as what some are. It would just take a lot of things to come together, and we'll talk about Ace, I'm sure, at some point here.
Oh, we have to because it's nonstop every day in our show chat. That is, we have a couple dedicated Ace fans who, if they do anything other than take Ace, it'll be a travesty.
Yeah, I see some like wild, like, Philly media folks, like who's the radio guy that's just like
his former podcast
co-host. My former co-host on another show, Elliot Shore Parks, my guy, loves Ace Bailey.
Yeah, he's all in. So like it's very fun when I see those things online. VJ, what worries me a little bit is like the lack of ball skill that he has. Like he doesn't really have a great left hand right now. A little bit slight as well, but like strong and physical and explosive. Like I think he'll be okay defensively and everything. He's a really high level defender. But I worry about the ball skills at the end of the day. And then Trey, just going to take some time physically, and he's not really a disruptive defender. I see all 4 of those guys. Kon, not a supreme athlete by any stretch. I see all the 4 of those guys as just being really close. So if I'm Philly and I might be able to take advantage of teams that don't see them as being really close, and more than anything, I have like multiple things that I have to achieve this summer. I'm looking at it as like, okay, I can get off this Drummond deal, which is like a total, disaster hanging around our neck right now. I can maybe get off the Eric Gordon deal and bring in like another draft pick to replace that maybe can play, but it certainly at the very least will provide me a real, cheap contract for the next 4 years as this team continues to hopefully build, and will continue to be expensive for as long as Joel Embiid and Paul George and Tyrese Maxey are under contract. Continuing to get cheaper players, and then the financial flexibility piece of it of, I think that going from number 3 to number 6, I believe is like a $3 million drop in terms of commitment financially, in terms of the rookie scale, plus the $8.5 million that you get rid of with Drummond and Gordon. It ticks all of the boxes that they kind of need to achieve this summer outside of, signing Quentin Grimes and Gershon Yabusele and figuring out kind of what their numbers are at the end of the day.
All right, let's take a quick pause. We come right back. We have a special guest hanging out with us here from The Athletic, senior writer. Sam Vecenie. We'll come back. We'll get into more of the prospects, especially the ones that we just talked about. We'll get into Ace Bailey, folks. Yes, we will, right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. All right, folks, I got to tell you about my good people. GLAT. If your hairline's been slipping, yeah, mine has a little bit. I know that. Slipping
fantastic, buddy.
and thinning out, and you're thinking about doing something about it, listen up. Hair transplants aren't just cosmetic, they're real surgery. And if you're considering flying overseas to save a buck, think again. I've told you about that. You're not going to Turkey. You're not. You're just simply going to Bala Cynwyd. You're going to GLAT Hair at Morgenstern Medical in Bala Cynwyd. You're getting care from board-certified surgeons with over 30 years of experience. They follow strict U.S. safety standards and deliver results that actually last. And here's the best part. You can text them a photo of your hair right now, and their team will take a look, let you know what options simply make sense for you. No pressure, just expert insight. Skip the travel, skip the risk. Get real care from a trusted local team. Text your photo or call 610-980-4000 or visit GLATHairMM.com. That's GLAT Hair by Morgenstern Medical. Let's get that hairline back in the game.
And guys, of course, we also have to shout out our good friends at Ace Hardware Home Services. At Ace Hardware Home Services, whenever they get ready for the next job, they remember what to bring. They bring experience. They got local plumbers and techs. They handle everything from repairs and seasonal maintenance to installations and upgrades. They bring understanding because they listen to your goals, and the job is not done until you say it's done and you tell them, I'm satisfied with the job that you've done. They bring helpful to your home so you can spend more time on the projects that really matter with your friends, your family, maybe even people you don't like all that much. You just have have time to do whatever you want with it. If you want to try to be evil and take over the world, Ace Hardware is saving you time, saving you money, and giving you that opportunity to do so. They'd obviously rather you be a good person, though. Get free estimates on equipment installation and replacement with trusted advisors and options that are best suited for your home and budget. Their teams also live and serve their communities. They're dedicated to keeping their neighbors comfortable in their home. They're your people helping you in your home. So visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast presented by Rothman Orthopedics. With us again from The Athletic, senior NBA writer and NBA draft, Sam Vecenie. So Sam, before we get to the Ace part for me, we've talked much about how this Sixers season was a disaster, as you just pointed out in the last segment about the Drummond contract and even Eric Gordon for where they are right now. But when you bring up the Kon Knueppel piece over those other three that are talked about more in Sixer fan circles, I wanted to ask about the fact that they are in this unique situation of they are not Charlotte, Washington, Utah, and any of these other teams that really don't see a playoffs in sight, where the 76ers are looking to get right back into that and having this young player to come in and add to that, but also be a long-term fit alongside Tyrese Maxey, who is already an all-star, and then a player you like from last year's draft in Jared McCain. So how much of that did factor into that by eliminating the other three and ultimately landing on Kon Knueppel for the fact that, there are two parts here of now and then later?
Oh, look, like they could try and trade out if they wanted to. Like I guarantee you there are a number of teams that would love to get the number 3 overall pick that have talented win now players. But, a huge piece of where the league is going right now with the new collective bargaining agreement, with how onerous the aprons are, not only financially, but in terms of team building restrictions, actually, it's really critical to have guys that you can trust on rookie scale contracts. Like it is so, so important to have cheaper guys that you think can play on the court. And, the Sixers have a real opportunity here, I think, to be able to add multiple of those players in this draft, even if they don't trade down, right? Like you can use number 3, you can use number 35 in the hopes that you can eventually, have those guys in a rotation with Tyrese Maxey on a max deal, with, whatever is going on with Joel Embiid. Hopefully Joel Embiid being
God only
actually
knows.
on the court and playing. I don't know if any of us know at this point what's happening with Joel. Hopefully he gets healthy, but and then the Paul George deal is obviously something that they have to figure out. So I think it's really, really important that they continue to add young pieces. Not only, if you think that you have to rebuild because Joel is not going to play again or whatever, or you think Paul George is cooked, like whatever you think, they have bigger problems if those two things are true. But if they aren't true, and if those two guys can play, it is still just genuinely really important that the 76ers have cheaper players that can actually contribute, given where the second apron is and how onerous that is. Even the first apron makes life a little bit harder when constructing deals and trying to find things that work.
So we have to talk about Ace. I think it's about time. It's the Ace Bailey segment of the show. Sam, I think there's a line of thought that this is a much better situation to bring Ace into than if he goes to a rebuilding team and you're asking him right away to be featured player, number one, number two option, and he gets to kind of do what he wants to some degree, and you're chasing a ceiling that maybe reinforces some of the more problematic parts of his game. So if you bring him here next to Maxey and Joel Embiid if he's healthy, and Paul George if he's healthy, and maybe you can take advantage of the catch and shoot stuff, the movement shooting potential to some degree. I guess what's your read on, do you think Ace would view it that way, right? Like, because he does these interviews, he plays a certain way, like up to this point in his career, he has been the player he is. Do you think, based on watching him, based on, interviews, talking to people, that he actually would accept that type of role and situation here? Or are you just getting what you see in Ace Bailey and that's kind of, you have to accept him for who he is?
Yes and no. Like, honestly, like, it's shades of gray within that conversation, because from what I understand, like, Ace really looks up to Paul George. Like, I actually think Paul George being on this team more than Tyrese, more than Joel, even though I think we all think Paul's probably the third best player of that group now. Like, I think that having Paul George would actually, like, kind of help him understand, like, what he needs to do. And, like, you think about how Paul George came into the league, right, in Indiana, like, didn't play a ton his rookie year, really started to emerge, played as a rookie. I shouldn't say that, like, played as a rookie, didn't have a massive role though. As a sophomore, like, started to emerge, started to figure some things out. Like, by the time he was a third year player, was really quite good at that point.
And George, by the way, has said multiple times how much he feels like Bailey is on the same tier as even Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, I mean, he's out of his mind. Like, look, like, we are in the middle of an NBA Finals where Tyrese Halliburton is up, and the Indiana Pacers are up 2-1 on the Oklahoma City Thunder. I respect all players, and I genuinely, like, do want to hear what players have to think of things. But if there's ever been an example of, NBA players not always being right and not necessarily always being as on top of the rest of the league, maybe, as people on the outside think they are, go look at the Athletics player poll where Tyrese Halliburton was the most overrated player in the league that they did in, like, March, right? It was completely asinine whenever that player poll happened, and it just continues to remain, like, the most obscene, absurd thing I've seen all season. I digress. I think that having Paul George around would actually just, like, kind of help that process a little bit. Like, I think Ace would, like, I think Paul George would be able to go to Ace, maybe I'm wrong about this, but, like, given how much usage the 76ers are going to take up between Maxey and Paul George and Tyrese Halliburton, right? Like, there aren't going to be a crazy number of shots, but, like, having somebody like Paul George that has gone through it and come out on the other side and become a genuine all-NBA player who's probably going to go to the Hall of Fame at some point, I do think that there's value in him being able to go to Ace Bailey and be like, dude, like, it's a process. Like, it's a grind. It's going to take a minute. You're 18 years old. It's cool. Like, this is good for you. And if you look at all the players in Ace's theoretical, let's go with outcomes, guys like Jason Tatum, like they didn't come in and have like this massive, let's take 17 shots per game role. Kawhi Leonard did not have this crazy, let's take, 15 shots per game role as soon as they got to the league. Like I assume that's where Ace Bailey wants to get to at some point. I think that a lot of the best wings, like they do take some time, and whether or not Ace wants that or not, I do think it'd be valuable more than anything to have somebody there that has gone through it and can genuinely tell him like, hey, it's going to take a second. Like, it's okay. This is a normal piece of the development where you come in and you knock down shots from the corner, you hit catch and shoot threes. I actually think he's really good at that. I think that I would love that to be his role. Now, how effective will he be in that role? Like, we can talk about that. He can hit catch and shoot shots, but there's more to it than that. Like, he's somebody that really holds the ball. Like I mentioned that Kon Knueppel does not hold the ball. He's somebody that maintains advantages by passing and making quick decisions. Ace Bailey catches, he holds, he jab steps, he takes one dribble and like gets to a turnaround jumper. He takes one like crossover dribble to get to his step back going to the left. He's very capable. He loves baseline mid-range jumpers. Like I'm really worried that like he's going to try and like catch a corner three that's open with like a, closeout coming at him. Just be like, no, I feel better about the mid-range jumper here. Like that shit just doesn't fly in the NBA. But like, I do think that if he was going to go somewhere, Philly makes sense. Like, I think Utah would make sense, even though they don't have like a great shot creator necessarily. They do have like, a younger point guard who can get him the ball, and Isaiah Collier. Like they have some other guys who can at least take shots like Lauri Markkanen. I think Will Hardy's a really creative coach in terms of the way that he uses movement offensively, and it might make things a little bit easier for Ace. I think Philly works for Ace. I just don't know if Ace works for Philly is kind of what my read is. And I guess we can talk about that a little bit more now that I'll give you guys a chance to talk here.
Yeah, well, I think so, and there's a lot of like, I agree with you that I don't necessarily see the star equity that a lot of people do, and one of the main reasons is he just doesn't get to the rim much at all for a high level prospect.
Yeah,
and I think people have a lot of reasons for that, whether it's ball handling, decision making, Rutgers situation, maybe a little bit of strength and whatnot to take some of the bumps on the drives in. What do you think is the biggest thing hindering him from getting, creating shots off the dribble and getting all the way to the rim at a high level?
Yeah, so multifaceted issue here for me. I mentioned high hips earlier in regard to Common Maluach. Ace has just like really high hips, and he tends to play very high. He tends to play very upright. He doesn't play with a ton of bend right now. I think that the first thing that I would be trying to do if I was a team that drafts Ace Bailey is unlock that ability to play with more bend, because he is an explosive athlete. Like he makes explosive movements on the court. It's just that for whatever reason, he doesn't play with a lot of bend. And then you see that as well in the handle. The handle is very high right now. Like I remember talking to a coach that was playing Rutgers earlier in the year. And he asked me like, yeah, what would you do like with Ace? I'd be like, I would send Diggs into his handle every single time. It's not like they're, surrounding Ace and Dylan with shooters right now across the court. There weren't many shooters. It was a really tightly spaced court. I'd just be sending Diggs into his handle every time. I think he's going to stop for pull-up jumpers. And if he's taking pull-up jumpers, you're winning probably at the end of the day. So I look at that. I look at the high hips. I look at it's a rudimentary handle. Like he has a bag to be able to get to his mid-range jumper. He actually has like a pretty advanced bag, I would argue, to be able to get to that mid-range jumper. But the issue is that, it's kind of exactly like Derek said, like the rim pressure is just not there. I mean, I'll look at the numbers here, but, going through it, looking through it took 38 layups all season and made just 42% of them. His gathers, I think, going toward the rim are actually quite poor right now. He really tends to lean away from the rim, as opposed to like somebody like Will Riley is also quite skinny in this draft. And if you watch him at Illinois, he's going direct to the basket every time. He doesn't care if he's going to get knocked on his ass. He's just taking direct lines to the rim with his footwork every time. I think Ace really needs to improve his footwork going toward the basket. I don't think he decelerates all that well right now going toward the rim. There's no like, okay, I'm going to plant on my left leg and I'm going to bump and then be able to like extend up using my 7-foot wingspan, be able to get to the basket. There's just nothing is easy for Ace. Like that's the biggest issue I have. Like there's no shot outside of a catch and shoot three that feels easy for him. And even the catch and shoot threes, I feel like he tends to hold it and there ends up being a closeout on them. Right.
Yeah. That was one of the
all
things
skill
that
in the
really
world.
jumped out going back through the tape was like, all right, if you go to Synergy and it's like, I'm going to watch every catch and shoot three he took. And the catch and shoot threes, I'd have to hand log them. But it almost felt like half of them were catch, jab step, jab step, jab step, and then you shoot, right? It's not it's not what you would think of when you hear the term catch and shoot three. Now, he was still very good on those, but it is it's a slower decision-making process.
Yeah, it's an issue of like flexibility on some level to me too. Like he just feels a little bit stiff in his forward movements. Like, and again, like I don't think he takes contact well right now. So it's kind of all of those things combined that make me think like the name I've always brought up with him is Michael Porter Jr., like not the prospect version that we saw at Nathan Hale when he was in high school. And like you watch Michael Porter Jr. when he was in high school, that dude was a dynamic, like fluid shot creator prior to his back getting hurt. I don't see that like dynamic movement, but the thing that Ace has is like, this is the advantage of having the higher center of gravity. He has very long strides to be able to get a lot of separation on his step back jumper. Like he really strides backward to be able to get to that shot. And I think that will be very effective in the NBA, especially by the time he's like 23, 24, 25. All of this leads me to like my kind of thing here, which is why I probably wouldn't take Ace if I was Philly. I don't think he's on their timeline. I think that a lot of this is just going to take a lot of time. And if I was that Philly front office, if I was Daryl Morey, I would be really worried that he is somebody that's just a project right now. I don't know how great Ace is going to be at coming in and playing like real minutes and helping you win this year. I think he has a lot of room for growth. Like I think he's definitely going to be like a real NBA player for quite a long time, but I don't know that I see this year being wildly successful for Ace. And this is a year where Philly in that front office has to win, it feels like.
All right, let's take another quick pause. We come back. We'll continue our conversation with Sam Vecenie right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
All right, guys, we also want to make sure we tell you about Empire today because just like your favorite team needs a home court advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage as well. And Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to some of those big box stores, and while they might have a flooring department, the person actually helping you with flooring may have been doing sinks yesterday and could be stocking light bulbs tomorrow. Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. They're flooring experts. Bring the showroom right to your home. You pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space so you can see how it looks with your furniture and in your house. You get precise measurements taken and have all of your questions answered so there are no surprises. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. You heard that right, a $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHLY for full details.
And you know why you also need those flooring experts? So you don't injure yourself and wind up at Rothman Orthopedics.
I see you breaking something.
You know I could, but I've already been there. I've already done that. And we have to talk about our presenting sponsor here on the PHLY Sixers podcast, Rothman Orthopedics. My friends and your friends too, should you need them. And we've all been there trying to power through those plans, the summer plans with the nagging injury or that stubborn pain that you're just trying to ignore. But when rest isn't cutting it, it's time to call in the experts. That's why we trust Rothman Orthopedics. Whether you're running on the beach, swimming your golf clubs, or lifting the little ones for a pool day or a get-together, family get-together, a barbecue, Rothman's specialists are here to treat whatever's holding you back. Their top-tier care will have you moving and enjoying every minute of the summer like normal. If pain is slowing you down this season, take the first step. Head to rothmanortho.com/PHLY and schedule your appointment today. If you're looking to find out where you can go, well, Rothman proudly serves dozens of communities across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Florida, with 30-plus convenient offices, urgent cares, and walk-in centers. If you're in our area here in Philadelphia, that's 3 right here in the area, located in Center City, Northeast Philly, and now at the Navy Yard, where I got my Achilles taken care of in South Philly, and that's that. So make sure you all go ahead, check out Rothman, check out the locations, and you'll be good to go. You can let them know that we sent you. You can definitely know I sent you because of all my history there. Rothman Orthopedics is your summer, your mobility, their mission. Welcome back on this Friday as the buzz continues. It's the Ace Bailey part of the conversation here, as we see the comments there in the chat. We know Brian Pumper is having a field day with what he's hearing right here. But we'll continue it and push it along too, because we started the week off, Sam, with Baylor head coach Scott Drew joining us to talk about his prospect, his player, and what that would look like as an NBA player, but also here in the situation in Philadelphia in that third tier for you. Your overall view of him when you talk about the Sixers need to win right now. He also does seem like a player that doesn't waste a lot of movement out there on the floor. He does the right things, and Scott Drew certainly talked about that. But is it the shooting maybe that put Kon Knueppel ahead of him as a prospect versus something else? Because his athleticism is totally different from what Kon Knueppel's is. What was it, the separation there, especially when we were looking at the Sixers?
Yeah, look, I mean, first and foremost, great that you had Scott on. Scott's a great dude. I'm sure that you had a blast talking to that dude.
Talking about cheesesteaks
right
and
away.
all kinds of other stuff too.
Scott's the best. Scott, I remember one time I tweeted an image of being on vacation in Bali, and he's like, "Oh man, my wife and I, we have a vacation coming up. Where are you? That seems like such a cool idea to go there." And I'm like, "Scott, man, this is a good spot, but you can do a little bit better." He's just the best. So with VJ, what worries me is the ball skills more than the shooting. I think he's going to shoot off the catch at a pretty high level. We'll talk about the pull up in a second with VJ. That does worry me quite a bit, but I think he'll shoot off the catch at a real level. I think that he's an awesome defender. I love what VJ brings on that end of the court. Not quite like a Cason Wallace level defender. I think Cason's a little bit longer. I think he's a little bit stronger and more physical through his torso and has a bit of a lower center of gravity. But VJ is really, really good. And I think honestly, VJ is even a little bit more disruptive off the ball. You watch his rotation, weak side rim protection, plays. You're just oh wow, this is pretty sick. He blocks jump shots more often than what you think on closeouts, because I think people kind of misjudge how athletic he is. He's very twitchy in all of his movements in a way that I like. I just don't love. No. The issue for him is the left hand for me. Really does not have much of a left hand right now, both handling the ball and when trying to get to the basket and score with his left hand. Teams Iowa State, Houston this year, the really high pressure defensive teams, they really gave him problems whenever he was trying to bring the ball up the court. If they would blitz ball screens and he was going to his left, or even if he was going to his right and had to counter, he struggled with that in quite a real manner. I think of him more as an off guard than I do as a primary. The thing that is worth noting in terms of okay, maybe I'm wrong about that, is that when Rob Wright was not in the game, VJ looked much better as a primary, honestly. In the moments where he was able to up his usage, he was a little bit more efficient. In general, I maybe he can continue to improve, because the other piece of it with VJ, and I'm sure you guys have gotten this now that VJ has been into Philly, unbelievable kid. And you've talked to Scott Drew, I remember talking to their staff in the in the preseason, and they were just VJ has stepped in and become already one of the leaders of the team. He's been here for a month, and it was just so quick. The way that he commands guys to come in, and he's willing to talk to them on the court, even as a freshman who's known these guys for a month. Like, he's willing to come in and be like, oh no, like, we got to do it this way. We got to be serious about how we're operating right now. We got to be on the court, and we got to be like a genuine team that is like practicing hard and making sure that we're, going through, not just going through the motions every single day. Like, he is somebody that really cares about the game and really wants to get better at a super high level, and like super engaging person. That, like, he has like all the things that you look for on the like off court side. All of the interviews that he's done with teams that I've talked to have just been awesome to this point. Really, really exciting on that front. But I think that what worries me is just like the ball skill. And then additionally, I think he made like 3 of 21 from pull-up jumpers from 3 this year. If I remember, I can look up the numbers in the draft guide kind of while we're here, but it was somewhat concerning. And I think even the way he like loads into those shots is not particularly impressive. I think his footwork just like needs to desperately improve. It's going to take some time to like really be able to get him on balance to the point where he can really knock down those shots. It was 9 of 35 pull-up attempts in senior year in high school. And like, think about that. Like, he only took 35 pull-up attempts in his senior year in high school, playing at La Lu, and like or not at La Lu, I'm sorry, Lu High. And it's a low number for a guy that is on the ball, as VJ did, right? It's just that he's not super comfortable doing that. He made 13 of 49 in total this year on his pull-up jumpers, according to Synergy. The legs fly everywhere. The shot tends to flatten out. Just the rhythm and balance like aren't really there yet in terms of that piece of his game. And then as a finisher, we mentioned Ace's concerns as a finisher. Yeah, VJ is like a wildly explosive athlete, but made just 48.9% of his half-court attempts at the rim, according to Synergy at Baylor. Made under 45% as a junior, and then was at 52% as a senior in high school. So like the gathers, the ability to deal with contact, like these are things that he's always kind of dealt with in terms of issues. I really like the player. I just think he's more like, I've been using like he's like Gary Harris with a jetpack like attached to his back. Kind of the way I think of him. Like, super explosive athlete, and like I think he's going to be able to step in immediately. And I think people hear that and they go, oh, like Gary Harris, like who the fuck wants that? But like, Gary Harris was like probably like a top 50 player in the league for a 3 or 4 year stretch there.
Yep.
And if he had a jetpack, think of how much higher he could have gone in those rankings.
Literally.
Totally, right? And like, he was averaging like 17, 3 and 3, getting all defense votes. Like, those guys help you win. And that's why VJ ended up in the top 5 for me, even though I have the on-ball concerns. But I think VJ will help you win. I'd have no problem with the Sixers taking him at 3. It'd either be him or Kon for me that I would take if I was them.
All right, look, one more quick break. Got to take this one in, squeeze this one in, fit this one in so we can come back, get some more prospect talk in, maybe fit in even the number 35th overall pick and what they should target at the top of the second round right here with Sam Vecenie on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
We also want to remind you about the Ball Knowers Ball bonus. Do you think you know ball? Unlike the people you see in front of you, we've got another Ball Knower bonus that we'd like to tell you about. For each game of the NBA Finals, all you have to do is pick the winner of the game. You can win a gift card to the PHLY merch store if you pick correctly. First, click the link in the description below and make your pick. Then place an order at the ALLCITY merch store.
Boy, do you talk for a living over there?
With a $25 minimum. If you pick correctly, you get a gift card to the merch store for the same amount as your original order. One important note is that you must click the link in the chat or in our show notes to qualify for the gift card. There is a game tonight. Now,
picked it wrong last time.
we pick wrong all the time. So you might want to go against the panel up here, but do we think that OKC will even it out?
I do.
Yes.
I do.
I do.
2-2,
Honestly, I feel pretty strongly about it, which means that you should probably go with Indy. So again, for all of you ball knowers, make your pick, place an order. If you pick correctly, you're going to get a gift card from us for the same amount as your order. That's the ball knower bonus from PHLY.
Guys, while we're on the subject of things that are happening at PHLY, next Wednesday, June 18th, we are doing a 12-hour streamathon presented by our friends at TrueMark Financial. If you ever thought, boy, overtime long shows are not enough of these guys, do I have a day for you where all of our PHLY friends, personalities, special guests will be live, will be on the air for 12 consecutive hours. It's called Musical Chairs, baby. We're just flying in and out. We're talking sports we don't normally talk. We're going to have a whole lot of fun, some special guests, behind the scenes surprises, maybe some friendly competition. So listen, our people are Sixers people. You're basketball people who are here, but we have people from the other shows. They're diehard football people. They're diehard hockey people. Those hockey people are crazy, by the way. It's all going to overlap on Wednesday. It's all streaming on our YouTube channel. Here's the kicker. The best way to support us is very simple. It's something I ask from you every day. Hit the subscribe button. Not only does it help us keep creating the content that you guys deserve, gets you front row access to every moment of the madness. Mark your calendar, clear your schedule. 12 hours of content on Wednesday. PHLY Streamathon. Subscribe now.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast from the Athletic senior writer for the NBA and the NBA draft, Sam Vecenie, talking about VJ Edgecombe. Derek, where do you want to go with this one?
So I guess one thing, because we talk a lot about Trey Johnson as well, and a lot about him. Yeah. The one thing I didn't like, his defense, especially off ball, was pretty disgusting at times. He certainly has physical tools that you hope he can grow into it with a 6'10" wingspan and whatnot. What'd you get from like his high school, like looking into it? Was he a little more engaged back then when he didn't have quite the role or the usage that he had at Texas? Like, is there any kind of indicator that he might make the most of that physical tools, especially if he obviously bulks up considerably? But is there any indicator that he might be better down the road?
Yeah, so like, it's funny with Trey. I generally agree that like he was not a disruptive off-ball player defensively. I did think that like he at least made rotations. Like it felt like he knew where he was supposed to be on defense, and like he is very engaged on the court. Like he is somebody that like is competitive, like he wants to win, like he's a real, like this guy is a crazy worker. Like, you know, one of the guys I've gotten in this class where it's like, no, like if you're going to bet on somebody to improve, bet on Trey Johnson, because he's not going to quit working. In terms of actually being able to disrupt guys defensively, I'm skeptical that he's going to be like, you know, we're hoping for neutral here.
Right.
I think for Trey, like we're hoping for neutral, and, you know, it might end up a little bit less than that. But I think that he is a real shooter. Like he and Kon are the two guys in this class. I guess Kobe Brea as well at Kentucky, given that he's like a historic statistical shooter. But like Kon and Trey are the two guys in the first round where I look at it and I'm like, look, these guys are like no fail prospects because they're such elite shooters that there's just no way that this goes poorly, like, you know, entirely, right? They're both super competitive. They're both hard workers. Like, given how important shooting is, these guys are going to be fine. Now, like, do you love it at number 3, given that you have Jordan McCain, or Jared McCain, Jesus Christ. It's been a long week, guys. Given that you have Jared McCain, given that you have Tyrese Maxey and Quentin Grimes and, you know, all these guys that probably profile best at like the 2-3 outside of Maxey, right? Like, maybe not. Like, I don't know that Trey is like the best fit in Philly necessarily, because I would want somebody that's like a little bit more engaged defensively. I think not even engaged, but like a little bit more disruptive defensively than what he is. But like I think Trey's going to be a really good basketball player, and I think that he has a real chance to, you know, be, you know, a 20 to 25 point per game scorer. You know, he, like the downside for him to me is like that it's something like what Malik Beasley is, and like Malik Beasley's still like a really good basketball player. At the end of the day, he's still somebody that, you know, was the second leading scorer on a team that was 6th in the Eastern Conference this year. You know, but the upside to me is that he could be like one of these primary scoring types who's like a genuine weapon off the ball if he finds the right coaching staff that like knows how to use him. That's the other thing. Like, you know, I'm sure you guys watching the tape, like Texas just didn't do anything for him off the ball. Like, this dude is a lethal shooter. Like, I watched him go through a workout in Santa Barbara and he sprinted off of actions for like an hour. This dude did not get tired. He did not ever see like any sort of drop in terms of like the shot stopping falling. I told him after the workout, I was like, that was one of the most impressive workouts I've ever seen from a teenage shooter. Like there are guys in their 20s like coming into the draft where I've seen where like they've gotten hot and dropped like 75 or 80 out of 100, but like, you know, what Trey did, like this dude just goes and he goes hard and he is very well conditioned and like he is all about hoops. Like it is, he's somebody that like I do just want to bet on continuing to improve. Like that's why like when people bring up the defense, I'm like, yeah, like I think he is more focused on scoring right now. Like I think he wants to like maximize what he is as a scorer, it feels like to me. But I think he'll figure it out. Like I think he wants to win so bad that like he'll eventually learn that like, okay, I can't just do this one way. Like I got to go both ways on this. I got to defend. So, you know, that's the upside of Trey Johnson. It's just like a great shooter, great movement shooter, comfortable with the ball, able to get to his pull up spots, but needs to be able to, again, pressure the basket, which is something that he did not do well this year, similar to Ace Bailey and VJ Edgecombe.
Sam, to that point about, you know, Trey being about the right things, talked about VJ being this, you know, the high character, leadership type guy. We've been trying to peg, you know, what is a Daryl Morey prospect, right? And it's difficult to say, all right, he did this, this, and this at pick 25. And so this is what he's going to do at 3. But if you were reading into Daryl's history and thinking about the types of players, but also people that he has drafted and they have drafted, who do you think checks the most boxes in terms of, if I was just going in blind, this is like the small handful of people that fit their MO?
So first and foremost, I want to say this is kind of why I think trade down is the most likely option here. I don't really think there's a guy in this class for them at number 3 that like ticks all of the Daryl Morey boxes, kind of. I think that he will certainly look for guys that are, you know, guys that tick models, you know, but it's not just models. Like, I think that's like the misnomer with Daryl is, you know, oh, like he's just going to draft the guy that the model ticks over as being the number 1 guy, right? Not going to do that. Like he is genuinely somebody that like likes to see, you know, workouts on some level and likes to, you know, watch tape and like dig in and see what's going on. Like, I think that the models matter. You know, I don't think he's going to take somebody where they are like catastrophically low on a model, right? That's what makes me very skeptical of them taking Ace Bailey is like Ace Bailey does not perform super well on models in just about every team I've talked to. You know, I've like kind of asked like, you know, is Ace like, give me a general sense of where some of these guys are on your model without, you know, divulging too much. And Ace tends to be lower in that regard. So like that's what makes me like a little bit skeptical of Ace. VJ, like, you know, I can see him liking VJ. I can see the pull up shooting, you know, being a real question in terms of the upside for him, right? The thing we know about Daryl is like Daryl is always like star hunting more than anything, right? Daryl is looking for guys that he think has like tremendous upside that could like really come through on, you know, whatever, you know, he's, you know, whatever the asset capital or pick capital or whatever he's putting into a trade or a, you know, a draft pick, whatever it is. So my issue with this is that I just don't know that any of these 4 guys really tick all of it for me. And it's kind of why like, look, I don't know what they're going to do. Like, I'm just going to straight up say, like, I think that they are looking at so many different options right now. I think it is very plausible they stay at 3. I think it's very plausible they move down. I would be surprised if they were able to move up. That would like genuinely pretty much stun me. It just given Cooper and Dylan and the level to which I think they are ahead. But I think that they will look at a significant number of options and try to determine the best course for them. But the reason why I think I'm not sitting here saying it's definitely going to end in a trade down. I think the most logical option, given what I, think about Daryl Morey and what I've been told about Daryl and like what I've been told about the Phillies, the 76ers process and everything, like trade down just feels like the option here to me. Cause like, I don't know how much upside any of these guys like truly have. I think they're all going to be really, really high level starters. I really like all of these players. I think they're all going to make $100 million in their career and like have really successful runs. But I don't know that any of them tick all of the Daryl boxes in terms of like models, eye test, star making upside, like kind of everything like that.
And with your hypothetical trade that you did have at 6 with Kon Knueppel, 18 for the Sixers in this one, making the deal with Washington, that Danny Wolf was the 18th overall selection in your hypothetical mock trade. Why Danny Wolf at that spot?
I love Danny Wolf. I have a very
Fair
high grade
enough.
on Danny Wolf. Danny Wolf is, look, like there's no intel on what the Sixers like at 18. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're just like not in that range of the draft. So I just thought through it and was like, hey, what do they need? They could use another big option, but like a big option that's like a little bit different than what they have, right? So Danny Wolf is like this dribble, pass, shoot, like some of the things he does are like basketball savant-y in terms of like how capable he is. I love watching him play as much as anything. I think he's way better defensively than what people see like 6'11", 250 pound like white dude, and they just assume he's like a big stiff, right?
Yeah.
He's not. Like Michigan like switched with him on defense this year. Like people look at Common Maluach and then look at Danny Wolf and they think of Common as being like the more switchable defender. And I'm just like, yeah, you guys just like didn't watch this year. Like Common is a guy who can go out and go on an island, and like if he's caught out there, like he's okay. He's solid at it. Danny, like a part of their scheme was switching this year. Like it's a little bit different in terms of the responsibilities and the number of reps that they had in those roles. So I think he moves like a little bit better than he gets credit for. He's an unbelievable passer. The key is going to be the shot. The shot looks super funky as like a super left the line release kind of coming out of his hand. And, I think he's working through kind of improving some of those things in the pre-draft process. He still made, I think, like 34% from 3 this year. So it's not broken by any stretch. But yeah, just like a really interesting, weird athletic prospect that I thought, could play at the 4 with Philly occasionally, could be like an interesting, counter at the 5 at times, like just a few different things.
Well, when we did our first round mock draft, I was picking for the Timberwolves, I believe, at 17. And I shocked the guys and went with Danny Wolf at 17 a couple of weeks ago. So
not a Devon guy typically that we would think of.
Devon
loves
there,
the true hoopers. Like he was early on Trey, he was early on Fears. That's his wheelhouse normally.
Devon, he is a true hooper though.
Yeah, and that's why I selected him at 17.
People look at Danny Wolf and they go, "Oh, this like big white stiff dude." Like he is more in line with like the hooper gene than he does the like.
Yes.
Oh, like the Kon Knueppel gene. Let's go with.
I guess last one for me at least.
Yep.
Just because we talked about it in yesterday's show, do you have Harper? Because you've obviously got Flag here, you got the third tier here.
Sure.
Is Harper closer to Flag, or is he closer to the guys at 3 through 8 or whatever?
Closer to the guys 3 through 8, only because I have like an obscenely high grade on Cooper. Like I think Cooper's the second best prospect I've evaluated since I've been doing this. Maybe not in terms of upside. Like Zion's upside was probably higher if it all went right for Zion, but like Zion had already dealt with some injury stuff, and we all had some vague worries about what the frame was going to continue to age into. Cooper, knock on wood, has not been hurt yet in his career. There's no real injury concern. He's an elite competitor. Like you go through like all the intel work on him and he's just like, this is incredible. Like from the moment that Cooper got to Duke's campus, like he completely transformed what they were doing, like from a practice perspective, from like a competitive perspective. Like I remember talking to John Shire in the preseason. He was just like, yeah, like Cooper has changed us just through straight up competitiveness. All he cares about is winning. Like there's nothing else that he cares about. The improvement on the ball was significant this year. All of it is just fantastic. This doesn't have to turn into a love fest for Cooper Flag, but like in terms of Dylan, I love Dylan as a player. I think he's going to be really, really impactful and impressive. Needs to work on the pull-up jumper as well. Like I think that will improve. He has enough of a base there. It's not quite as bad as VJ's. It's like he's like a, I think he was somewhere between like 29 and 32 this year from 3. So I think that, Dylan like was almost a tier 1 player for me. Like he'd be like, I'm like going into the freaking Greenberg tiers now, like another Titusism, but like, going into the Greenberg of like, yeah, he was like tier 2A C, ME or whatever. No, like Dylan was very high in tier 2 for me. Like he was one of the better tier 2 guys that you'll find. Yeah, I think he's going to be an all-star level player. I'm a very big fan of Dylan Harper.
Got any more, boys?
Well,
Do you guys?
I mean, we talk about.
So I
You
would
mentioned 35.
two more.
I think the people would be
35.
disappointed.
Well, so give us your elevator pitch on a player at 35, at least that you think is, as much as we can predict the draft, that is likely to be in that range and you think makes sense for the Sixers.
I don't like, I'll give you a couple players, but like the thing I will say about 35 is it's like right on the edge of where we start getting into the drop off for me.
Yeah.
I think that there will be players available at number 35 that will probably be worth a guaranteed deal. If I was them, I would be looking at Elijah Martin, Sion James. Sorry, I always do that for some reason. Sion James. I would like hope beyond hope that somehow Ryan Kalkbrenner got to 35 because that is like the perfect.
We've talked about
backup
him a
for
lot.
this team.
We're fans of his for sure.
I would move up for Ryan Kalkbrenner if I was Philadelphia. Like I would be trying to do what I could to get him. I mean, like, look, like Adu Tiero could get there in theory. Ben Suraf could get there. I mean, maybe Max Raynaud, but like, I don't think he gets there at the end of the day. Seems like Drake Powell's probably a little bit higher than this right now too. I mean, Tyrese Proctor, another Duke guy, can really shoot the ball. Very skinny, but like competitive on defense. Janai Broom, I'm sure, is another guy that's been brought up just as like a backup center for you guys.
Yeah.
Janai's fine. Yannick Niederhauser would be another guy, just like pure rim runner, but I'm not a huge Niederhauser fan. Yeah, like honestly, my favorite, like last year, people, that follow my show will know, like I've like an obsession with Cam Spencer. Like I think Cam Spencer is one of my like favorite basketball players because he's just like my kind of like competitive. I mean this positively. Like he's just like a competitive psychopath. I think we saw that like on the court this year in the like minutes he played with Memphis, where he'll just go up to Devin Booker and start talking shit and like chirp constantly. My guy this year is Elijah Martin. I love Elijah Martin. He's an absolute bulldog on defense. Like this is a dude that was a legitimate, like real Division I football prospect, like as a quarterback that was like a dual threat quarterback, super physical, has that kind of frame, absolute freak athlete, and he uses it and he talks on the court. If you talk to the Florida staff, like, look, they're well aware that like Walter Clayton was the best player on the team, but they will straight up tell you that like they do not win the title without Elijah Martin, in the way that just his mentality completely shifted their defensive capabilities. Elijah is my guy in this class like that.
Okay, I'll find one because we do have two Philadelphia guys, one a little bit higher in the first round conversation with Rasheer Fleming from St. Joe's, and then Eric Dixon from Villanova, who's, a fifth-year senior and had a fantastic career, led the league, led the college basketball in scoring this year. Just your observations on those two with Fleming, if you could start there.
Yeah, so I wish I was a little bit higher on Rasheer than I ended up. A very theoretical player to me. People will look at the fact that he's enormous, like 6'9", 7'5" wingspan, and can shoot, and like is super athlete as well. And they think of him as like this wing. I almost think of him like, I think he's more of like a big. Like I think he's more like Bobby Portis than he is like, name big wing that you want to bring up in this like Trevor Ariza or something like that, right? Like he's more that to me, and he's valuable. Like I think he can be a valuable player for sure. I didn't love the feel for the game. I didn't love, like, I felt like he was a consistent gambler on defense in a way that worried me. I'm probably one of the few that have him as like a second round grade as opposed to a first round grade. Seems like an awesome kid from everything I know intel wise. So like he's one of those kids where like you put him on the board and like you really hope that you're wrong, kind of like you just want that kid to succeed more than anything. And another guy that is like that is honestly Dixon for me too. Eric Dixon's like one of those people like I just would like to meet at some point. He seems like such an interesting, thoughtful human being. Like really into like art history and like really into, a whole lot of like really cool things. Yeah, he seems like an awesome dude. I just don't know how he survives on defense in the NBA. Yeah. Real shooter, obviously now. But like a lot of what they did beyond the shooting was even just like some weird post stuff. And that's just not going to fly at 6'5" or 6'6" at the next level. Right. If I thought he could survive on defense, I would have him quite a bit higher, but I see him as like a two-way guy. And, I think that he could be an interesting two-way guy for somebody.
All right, Sam, before we get you out of here, dust settles. We're on draft night. Sixers don't move anywhere. They're just sitting at 3. Who are you taking with that pick? And who are you taking? And who do you think the Sixers are taking with it could be the same, could be different.
Yeah. I'm torn personally between Kon and VJ for them. I think I would take Kon because I would want the slightly bigger player, given that McCain and Maxey seem like the two like real long-term building blocks here, right? We'll figure out what happens with Paul George. We'll figure out what's going on with Joel Embiid. But like, if I'm them, like I think I've got like two dudes here that are like there for the long term in Maxey and McCain. I would want the slightly bigger player, with all things like being equal. Obviously, Edgecombe and Kon are not in any way similar as basketball players, but they are certainly on my board like very similarly graded. And I think I would go with Kon over VJ at the end. It's very close though. I think that they would go VJ if you made me bet, because I think that you can sell yourself just slightly more on upside if you think that VJ is going to continue to improve at the rapid rate that he has over the course of the last like 4 years of his career. I think that they would sell, given like the Daryl Morey like upside swing, kind of mentality. I think they would sell themselves on VJ at number 3, and that's kind of been my opinion since like the week after the lottery. If they end up staying at 3, but I still think if you made me bet one way, I would say a trade down.
All right. Top 100 prospects, ranking, tiers, and analysis. That's the 2025 NBA Draft Guide from Sam Vecenie of The Athletic, senior writer for the NBA and the NBA Draft. Make sure you go sign up to become a member at The Athletic, subscribe, and when you do, you get a chance to take a peek at the draft guide, of course, and see where all of these players do fall, from Cooper Flagg to Rasheer Fleming, all the way down to Eric Dixon and so many more. Make sure you also check out his podcast, tremendous listen, and that is the Game Theory podcast as well. Sam Vecenie, thank you so much, man, for joining us, spending some time with us, a lot of time with us on this Friday, as we are less than 2 weeks away from the NBA draft. Can't wait to see how it all plays out and continue to follow your work as we do so. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it so much.
Oh, man, that was fun. Really appreciate speaking to Sam. Longtime fan. I know you guys know him so well, and this was the first time I had a chance to really talk to him in this way, so that was really
He's been
cool.
like an unofficial member of the show the amount of times I think we've brought him up during the pre-draft process.
Yeah, so hopefully you all enjoyed that. Hopefully we all got a little bit of an education there on his thought process of how he puts together his draft guide and all of that. Don't forget to make sure not only his draft guide, the ALLCITY draft guide with Derek Bodner and CHGO's Will Gottlieb. Make sure you check that out. Become a member by signing up at the ALLCITY, all that stuff with the allphly.com. Go sign up so you can make sure you check out Derek and Will's draft guide as well. So on the way out, we got to say goodbye. We'll see you tomorrow. If the rain cooperates, we'll see you tomorrow.
Hoping for good weather at this golf outing.
Yeah, at the golf outing, the second annual, and we hope we're all able to hang out with you, talk a little hoops, and see how it all plays out for us. So let's get ready to say our goodbyes, man. It's been a long week and a long Friday.
It has been a long Friday. We're going to do an abbreviated roll call, and unfortunately, super chats are getting shelved until Monday because we have arrangements to make. But obviously, we've got to thank all our regulars: Jay of the Jungle, my girl Winona,
Hey Nona,
Jess, Randy
Purple
Rubar,
Heart, Randy.
Brian Knight,
B-Knight.
Mellow 3 Point,
Mellow, my man.
Rick Morse, Valho.
Go get him, Rick.
Who else we got? Who we missing today?
INS.
INS, of
INS.
course.
The letter N.
Beat Pump, who I don't know if he's
Losing his mind
excited or
there.
angry. Densley, another member of the Ace Hive.
Yeah.
Duck Holiday. We got, we love you all. But today we talked with Sam for a lot longer than I think we were expecting coming in.
Yep.
So again, super chats on Monday. We will circle back on those. In the meantime, guys, those of you who are coming to the golf outing on Saturday, we're excited, hopefully, if the weather holds out, to see some of you down there. Or up there, I guess, based on where we're at. I actually need to look into where it is exactly on a map because I've never been there before.
Valley Brook Country Club.
Well, I know where it is.
Blackwood, New Jersey.
There you go.
You're good to go.
I don't look at maps too often anymore. Anyway, guys, on your way out, could you please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. Hit that thumbs up button as a thank you to our friend and our guest, Sam Vecenie.
Yes.
But also to
Gets another
super
bell.
producer, Bree.
Sam.
Putting it all together, making it all happen, making us look much better than we would otherwise. Thank you to Bree, as always. Everybody.
Hi, Mom.
Oh, how could I? It's how rude of me.
Very disrespectful.
Mom's
that's
grandchildren.
Okay.
I
That's
didn't.
okay.
I take responsibility.
No, don't worry about
for
it.
that one. Shout out to Mom.
Yes.
Shout out to all of you. Those of you we won't see on Saturday, we'll be back Monday, 3 o'clock, as we are Monday through Friday. We have a bunch of stuff coming up in the next week and a half.
Busy.
Leading into this draft. Busy schedule. Subathon next week. A whole lot going on. Until then, enjoy your weekend. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.
12 days away. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.